Hello. You're probably watching this in the middle of the week. It's what we typically call a hangover or a rabbit hole episode. But I think this will be probably more appealing more generally than our usual rabbit hole episode. We are still at Mount Pleasant Sports Club, where you would probably have seen us last week filming our season finale at the end of season 4. But we've got a guest among us. Phillip
Kudzayi. Phillip Kudzayi.
Oh, okay. You like, do you do that on purpose?
Yes.
To confuse people?
I do. Yes.
Well, welcome to the show, Phillip.
Thank you.
I really apologize for these two gentlemen. Twiddle D and Twiddle.
Forgiven.
I have no idea what they are talking about. But welcome to this place. We
Thank you.
tend to gather around here.
I think you should have like maybe 15 to 30 seconds to talk about our journey, 4 seasons. Like 4 seasons?
So, that was the other episode.
Yeah, we didn't.
See what happened.
See what I was saying.
We're not on a new episode.
You didn't actually. Nobody actually said
Okay,
anything.
so do we need to fast forward? Okay, let me just fast forward your brain.
Anyway,
You missed the
carry on.
chance. Anyway, we gather around here and we try and solve the world's problems. We tend to talk about things that we know nothing about. And people probably take us too seriously because
They certainly should.
So let me tell you a bit of backstory with Phillip. So Phillip,
Okay, no, this
You
will be
know-
long. So anyway, before he goes,
No,
before he goes into
let
that,
him
Phillip
have
brought-
his 2 minutes.
No, Phillip brought a drink for us. Shall we allow him to introduce that and also to relieve his own first, and then Tinashe can lecture to his heart's content.
Thank you. Very important. So I've got this here. It's my first time coming across it. I was traveling somewhere, and the sommeliers recommended. I mean, he took us on some sort of a wine course and then a whiskey course and stuff. And this came strongly recommended. So let's try it out and get a feel of.
What's it called? Where's
It's called Cowell. It is Scottish, somewhere Port Askaig, Isle of Islay. I have no idea where that is, but it is Scottish. That should be enough. You know, I have no doubt, Daka. I have no doubt. I had a little bit of a chance to, on the tasting menu to have a go at it. I thought at the time, obviously, I was slightly intoxicated. It came off as peaty, but beautiful. So let's see how it is today. I'm a little bit sober now. I'll be able to give an opinion.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Go for it.
Look,
Yeah.
Can I finish the talk?
Yeah.
I've never actually had that, but I am aware
It's quite peaty.
that it's yes, it is quite peaty. It is. It's one of the single malts that actually makes the blends that is used by Johnny Walker. And
That doesn't say much
not
about it.
a lot of people are like George are very disparaging of
Yes.
blends in Johnny Walker.
Beautiful.
But I think that I don't think I'm a big fan of single malt whiskies, but I don't think that they're superior to blends. I think that they're different from blends. So what blends bring to the party is different from single malts.
Are you going to taste?
Of course,
Or you
you
gonna
adulterated my glass with lots of ice. I know, but what I'm going to do.
Anyway, so you can carry on.
thank you very much.
Like, we're not even going to ask what you're drinking. It looks like a Fanta and suffice. That will suffice that it's...
I'm going to have some
similar to
neat,
Fanta.
and then I'll have some with ice.
Okay, so the backstory is this. I think we were on Twitter, and
Oh, it's quite peaty.
you looked at my library because I think I posted my library. And it's like, oh, there's one important book that you actually don't have in your library, and that you must read. And I'm always very suspicious of people who offer books to me because, typically they don't know what I like reading, and it's very airy-fairy.
Can I just say something to the audience? If Tinashe actually looks at your library and likes something,
No
he
problem.
won't. He won't. That is the last time you're ever seeing that book. I speak from experience.
Yeah.
But anyway,
So,
carry on.
George, that story. No. So, you know what? I took one of your books, which is
couple of my books.
No, one of your books, and in turn, you took, I think, 3 or 4 of my books.
No,
But anyway,
nonsense.
that's not the story. The story is he then decided that he was gonna give me a book. He donated a book,
Gifted.
gifted a book.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was fantastic. You know,
Which
it
one
was
was
very
Daniel
insight-
Kahneman, huh?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. It was
Which one?
extremely,
Which book by Daniel?
incisive. I think it's the idea of statistics. So
What's the name of the book?
I'm forgetting the name of the book.
He's only got one good book.
Yeah, but
So he's actually got more.
let me
I'm a fan.
yeah, let me tell you the
he's looked
theory.
at from all of us.
It's thinking fast and slow.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you,
thinking
Master.
fast
That's a
and
great
slow.
book.
Excellent.
so-
Excellent. Yeah.
The whole thesis of the book is that all we've been fed, all the statistics that we've fed, when we read a newspaper, when we read whatever, is just playing to our, what we already, our biases. So it's already playing to our biases. And what you need to do is to relook and think, so that you can look at the numbers as they are and not playing to your bias. So every number you see, and this is television and advertising, is to confuse your mind and it's just playing to your biases. So I thought that was...
So can you focus
quite-
on you introducing Philip?
No, I'm not introducing, I'm giving you an anecdote about our relationship,
Oh, right. Okay. All right.
right?
So are you done?
That
So
he's a thinker.
Are you done?
So I'm trying to say that, okay, so you guys are now drunk.
I also have an anecdote.
Okay, so you guys are now drunk.
No,
No.
not yet.
Are you done with your anecdote?
So I'm
we
saying
can carry on with the
that's the
introduction.
background of my relationship
Yeah.
with Philip, that he's actually a thinker, and we've spent a bit more time thinking about ideas. So it's not just the
I love this.
architecture
So
and the design and the innovative
I have
stuff
an
that he
anecdote.
does. He's actually very useful.
I have an anecdote
In-
and a question for Philip. And so I've known Tinashe a long time, and one of the areas where we agree and disagree simultaneously is design aesthetics, right?
Before you
Can I finish?
Are you going to get to the design issues before you finish in the introduction?
He's finished his introduction.
No, we don't know anything about him in design.
Well, the audience is going to learn. So there are areas where Tinashe and I are kindred spirits, and then the areas where we disagree. Where he tends to be very old school, and I tend to be a modernista. Yeah. But like an area where we will agree, which you will appreciate as an architect, is Tinashe lives in a place that is very aesthetically pleasing. It's won design awards. I actually quite like that design. But I've seen some images of your work as an architect of homes that you've designed, and they're they appeal to me so much because they're very modern, lots of glass, very functional. Tinashe would never build a home like that.
I can agree. Yeah.
Right. So perhaps maybe
Philip has seen my house.
yes,
I've been there.
I'm sure
Yeah.
he has.
Yeah.
So as an architect in 2022, right, and there's this clash of ideas and thinking around how to build stuff. There's this.
Yeah, that's an important question.
There's glass.
Yeah.
There's
Okay, can we just pause that for a while? Because I think it's a very important question. But let's frame it for the audience.
Mm.
So, okay, he's kind of stolen my thunder. But
Yeah.
you're an architect.
Yeah.
You've lived and worked in different countries.
In a previous life, I was, but I
Oh,
like to think of myself as a property developer now.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah.
And you've
let's
lived
go.
and worked in different countries.
I have.
Where?
Yeah. I've had a short stint in South Africa, another one in Namibia, a little bit in Botswana. I've been a remote worker for an architect in the Cayman Islands, and I've also worked here. I think the bulk of my career has been spent here in Harare.
Okay, and
Yeah.
so you're locally trained.
Yes, I'm born, bred, trained in Harare. A little bit of training in Pretoria, and the bulk of my career has been spent practicing in this city, Harare.
Wow.
Yeah.
And your passions?
Professional or okay, so
Okay, look,
yeah.
let's just say
personal.
until you're shirtless.
Okay,
Yep.
so I've got a very keen.
oh my goodness.
So I've got a very
You have to go
keen,
there.
a very
Yeah,
keen
you have to.
interest in all things infrastructure, all things buildings, very keen interest. I'm attracted to cities. Every opportunity I get, every chance I get, I won't miss a chance to see a new city. Quite naturally, I'm involved because I've been to architecture school, I've been to construction management school. So I've got an eye for construction. I think that's my first passion. Very closely related to traveling. I consider myself to be a professional traveler.
A flaneur.
Yes.
Nassim Taleb has a word for that. Flaneur.
Flaneur.
Yes.
I consider myself some sort of a traveler. Wine. I've got a keen interest in wine. Very keen interest in wine.
So at this point, a question that bubbles up in my
no. Himself before you interrupt.
I have an important question.
No, he'll answer
from everything that you've said so far.
Yeah.
How are you friends with Tinashe?
Economics. I'm a light. I consider myself to be some sort of an amateur in economics. I do pay attention. I've got some interest, very elementary, but I do have an interest in economics. I pay attention when there's conversations relating to economics. So yes, I don't know if that defines me as an economist, but I do have an interest in economics.
Okay.
Obviously, I'm a family man. Well, it's not obvious, but I do.
Well, in architecture, right?
Yeah.
Design.
Yeah,
I'm in love with
architecture.
designs.
I'm drawn.
But you love like old school, boring.
He's actually very interested.
I also do love old architecture. I'm not, I'm just a pencil in the hands of my clients sometimes, and a lot of the most prominent work I've done may come off as modern and stuff. But at heart, at my core, I'm actually very traditional in terms of my appetite.
If you've seen the stone cladding that he's doing recently, that's not modern.
It's not.
Okay.
No.
You see, and people haven't picked this up about his designs. That actually is bringing in the old.
Okay, can you guys stop talking from? And let's ask him questions and he can answer himself.
Yeah.
So maybe could you summarize your philosophy about space and aesthetics?
Summarize. Very complex. Strong believer. I think all things should be beautiful. I have a belief that we must have an emphasis on beauty, and whatever we approach must be beautiful.
So that's your answer to his question. So
which question? He's thrown a lot of questions.
No. His original question about modernity and the old kind of architecture.
Yeah. So
for you, it's beauty. It's aesthetics over function.
Not exactly. I don't think that there's a relationship between, or there's an antagonizing relationship between aesthetics and function. We can have very functional spaces that are also aesthetically delightful. My problem with the modern movement, or what we think of modern or contemporary today, is the idea of architecture for cloud. Architecture for cloud. Think of social media.
Like your whiskeys.
You want to post your big bum or your cloud, right? A lot of the design solutions we see today are, revolving around cloud. They are actually not considerate of
bubblegum.
It's bubblegum architecture, right?
Yes, I want to push back against his.
Thank you.
His comment.
Amen. Beautiful decision. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was going to say there's a philosopher, I don't know if you know it, Roger Scottron, and he talked about a lot of architecture and beauty. Yeah. And he says that there's the intersection of good design is where morality meets beauty. Because when you do that, then it's timeless. And when you look at France, let's say Paris, for example.
Beautiful
buildings, but also functional. Yeah. But the whole idea is to make them livable.
I'm sure you don't have the same opinion of Dubai.
Entirely functional?
Yes, exactly. Dubai is.
I want to push.
It's an eyesore.
On his comments about.
A man after my own heart.
I feel very strongly and passionately about this. And so one of the areas in which Tinashe and I are actually kindred spirits is that a part of me is actually a pet for him. Right? I can appreciate like the sound of a powerful engine. Like when you just switch on the ignition and then it just murmurs, it just goes over.
Scrolls.
That's growling.
Yeah.
Still memory.
It's scrolling.
Whatever the sound
So
is,
that's something we have in common. We share that. Yeah.
You also
Right.
a petrol.
I'm not a petrol head, but I do appreciate fine cars and big engines
Right.
and fast cars.
And
I just can't find the money to buy one
and-
myself.
I should just get offset now.
but the point I want to make is that so I believe there's a universe of people who are legitimately petrolheads who are wealthy and they own these cars because they love them. They just love the sound, the way they drive, the way they turn in a curve, right? And then there's another universe of people who know nothing about car engines and driving fast in a curve.
And it's about
But they
cars.
want to signal to the Georges of this world that they have money.
No, I agree.
And I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think there's nothing wrong with that.
We can have a conversation about that,
Yeah.
but that will be a rabbit hole. But
Well, we are in a rabbit hole.
but the point I want to make to Tinashe about whiskey, right?
Is this what this is?
Yes, this is exactly what this is about, right? Is that there's a guy who's going to go into a bar or establishment and he's going to order a $200 whiskey to signal to everybody that he's got money. But he has absolutely no
Idea.
understanding of whiskey. And it's like, and they'll be drinking it with lemonade or fruit juice.
Fanta grape I have seen.
Yeah, and did it, right? Yeah, that famous story you told me about the guy.
The guy's got a sweet tooth.
So
So why didn't you just drink Fanta grape?
anyway, gentlemen,
We're going down a
but there
rabbit
are people who will drink whiskey like me, like George, like Philip, I believe, who actually appreciate the way it smells, the way it tastes.
Yeah, the way it looks.
We're not trying to signal to anybody because we don't actually care what everybody else thinks.
So if I can't afford a good bottle of whiskey,
You just don't.
no, I'll have a J&B.
But
I'll have a J&B
there's no
any day
relationship
over-
between the price of a whiskey and the quality of a whiskey.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll tell you now, my thoughts are that Jameson is one of the finest whiskeys out there.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Can I get a second?
What does drink that?
No.
So look, I agree. Petrus Grouse is also a fine whiskey, but I don't think those are expensive whiskeys. But
No,
they're
they're
also offering great offering.
So that's what I say. I'll have a J&B
Yeah,
before a famous.
yeah,
Then I'll have a famous after a J&B.
yeah.
And by a long way, I'll have a Jameson. But you know what? A black label, I won't touch with a barge pole.
We will forever be
A
on
man
the
after my
opposite
own heart.
side on the black label
A man after
argument.
my own heart.
I actually quite like black label. And
Double Black was their attempt to redeem
Jameson
the
is
thing.
one of the few whiskeys, because I have sinus issues, so I have struggle smelling stuff. But Jameson,
Do you mind if
I
I
can
cut this
smell it.
conversation and we go back to?
Thank you.
Oh, you brilliant.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
Thank
I've got a question for you.
Yes,
Philip.
thank you.
How would you describe Zimbabwean architecture?
It's a mess.
Because
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
but is there such a thing as Zimbabwean architecture or Rhodesian architecture?
Can you articulate it better?
Okay. Look, I think he's actually answered a very good question, which I'd like to hear your answer to. Is there such a thing as Zimbabwean architecture?
Not that I'm not that I'm aware of. I think that there's
What people are building. That's what we would term.
okay. Yeah, well, that's a mess. No doubt about it. That's a mess. The built environment is in a state of a mess. I think the way I would look at it is that the public was never meant to build homes, right? What was supposed to happen was that institutions were supposed to be the principal players in the industry, and they were supposed to deliver homes and then invite you to own those homes. This idea that everybody must have their own ideas about what a house is, what a house should look like, how we should approach the house, and then we've got this mess on Araya Drive.
But
I don't know.
there are those who call you a snob for saying something like that.
No, he's just saying that there are certain people.
Can you let him respond?
I'm going to say something that's going to...
Yeah.
I want your opinion as an architect, because a lot has gone wrong since November 2017. But one of the things that I love.
I think everything is going according to plan, actually.
One of the things that I love that has happened since November 2017 is if you're driving on Border Road into town, past State House, right? They've remade the entrance. I think it's. I actually tweeted about that. It's beautiful.
What is that? What is lovely? The entrance to State House.
Yes.
Oh my God.
It's horrific. On my timeline.
Oh my God.
Just 2 days ago, I was tweeting about. I said I don't think it's
There's a
beautiful.
reason why
it's horrific.
Phillip here.
So why do you think it's horrific? I think it's
the
beautiful.
expert.
I think it's phenomenal.
No, but it's art. So
Okay,
issues
guys, can we listen to
No,
that?
no. Let's hear the expert. Let's hear the
expert.
Let's hear the architect.
Gents, as interesting as this is, you can see Ranga hopping up and down in the background here.
He's having a tantrum and he looks like he's about to explode.
It was his birthday this week. But anyway, we need to go for a break now. You please go and relieve your bladder, powder your nose, and we'll be back in a couple minutes. And we're back. Twiddle-dee, twiddle-dum.
He hasn't told us about his shoes.
But there's a smart guy here.
To me.
Well, please don't describe me as an expert. I'm a participant. I'm a practitioner, but I'm certainly not an expert. But when you look at State House, what is the message you seek to communicate?
No, that we're
right for me.
That we're a great country, or we're potentially a great country.
It is A, power. B, excellence. I am not convinced
of either.
I'm not convinced they've achieved that with that.
Or compared to the previous,
it is also
my bar is the previous entrance. It's not like what's the best they could have done.
The previous entrance was understated. I actually think it was very effective.
Can we just hold back a bit?
Thank you.
Can you just explain why Zimbabwean architecture is in a mess? Because what you're seeing at State House is just
a reflection of that mess.
Of the Zimbabwean mess. So please articulate. Let's zero in on what is a mess. What do you mean when you say Zimbabwean architecture right now is a mess?
I'm disappointed. I find myself in a place where I sit in a panel and I'm considered an expert.
Because
I'm here, you know, I'm already here.
You're the guy who actually went to architecture.
We must have an identity. We must have a universal position on what we believe is quintessentially Zimbabwean. Who are we, right? What defines us? If a very good example for me, I've been to Rome. I've not been to Santorini yet, but I think a very good example is Santorini, right?
Where is that? What is that?
Santorini is an island, a Greek island, very famous for holidays, nice white buildings and so forth. Everybody in Santorini has come to some sort of a social contract that Santorini is about white buildings. Santorini is about the views of the sea, capturing vistas of the sea. Santorini is about the outdoors, about the sun, about, you know, the fair weather, right? I don't think that as Harare, we've come to a place where we've agreed on what we believe to be the ideal. Let's talk, I'll give you an idea of suburbia for me, right? What is suburbia? Where do you derive the value in a suburb, right? For me, the value is in tree-lined streets, wide shoulders, well-kept, manicured lawns, right? Safety, security, the kids can ride on the street and stuff. Borodobrook has got some sort of an idea, right? But I'm not going to mention names, but you go into a lot of these new developments and all these ideas and all these principles of what suburbia should be have not been captured, right? It's these massive houses behind these massive walls. There's no sense of community. There's not even space for tree-lined streets. There's no harmony. There's no beauty there, right? Yes, you've got the money. You've got a generator. You've got a ball.
So, Philip, is it correct if I say that we haven't had a conversation? So
there's no conversation.
So when you say Mediterranean, what I'm capturing is, by the time you say Mediterranean, in people's minds, you've already captured the imagination.
When I say Rome, you know exactly what.
You know exactly.
When we say Harare, what comes to mind?
But
porcelain tiles.
In the previous episode we did, the season finale, we talked about the philosophical distinction between, and we'll avoid labels, but the individual and society. Are you just not electing a choice? You're electing for society to make decisions about. So Santorini, and I've been to Greece, it's not only Santorini, it's all the Greek islands. They have this white and blue. It's like literally when you go and buy your building materials, they give you free white and blue paint.
Do you know why it's like that?
Can I finish my argument? So it's literally like that in the Greek islands, and it works for them there. I've been to Amsterdam, and you got the red brick, and you got the gables, and they've elected it, and it works for them there. Yeah. When you go to Dubai, when you go to New York, even London to a large extent, it's different. Zimbabwe in the 60s, 70s, into the early 80s, the typical home was what was called the Rhodesian bungalow.
A bungalow.
With the gable and the
I
tiles.
still believe that was the answer.
But society, coming out of that period, going into the 90s, into the 2000s, society said, oh, well, there were people that emerged and said, well, I don't want to live in a bungalow. I want to live in a house with a flat top.
Yeah.
So is that not a philosophical issue that society must resolve? And is society not resolving it itself when every time somebody buys a bungalow in Mayborough, Mount Pleasant, even Borrowdale, and raises with a Z, and puts up something that looks square with a flat roof?
Yeah.
Is that not society saying, well, actually, we don't want the bungalows?
And those who have got 8 kids.
Yeah.
Strong man.
All right, that's a very long question. Repackage it for me.
Okay.
And then he can come in.
All right.
Sorry. So yeah, so he can interrupt in the introduction. You wanted to introduce a mate that you.
Okay, yes. So I brought along a very good friend of mine. His name is Temba Kumbula. He's an engineer.
Is there a camera on Temba?
Very, very prolific. We've spent the greater part of our careers, we've worked together. A lot of the projects that perhaps I've played frontman, he's also worked with us behind the scenes and stuff like that. He's still behind the scenes even today, but yeah, that's Temba Kumbula for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So Temba's going to help you out.
So Temba will help me out with some of the questions.
So we come in on the idea of the bungalow. So the challenge we have is that Zimbabwe is largely a raw recipient of pop culture.
Thank you.
So what it is, we behave and react to what we see. So the houses that you speak of now and what you're regarding as modern design is a reaction to the proliferation of Nollywood. if you notice, the moment
Nollywood.
developed,
Nigeria.
so notice when these houses came in, it is after Nollywood, and you can almost track the trajectory of the penetration of Nollywood to our
Banana
environment.
Island. Yeah.
Yes, Nollywood to our environment, and also the trajectory of the change in houses.
Yeah.
But what we should appreciate is that most of the houses that we raise down, these are houses that normal families with even more children lived in, and they refinanced in them, and they did well until they left them to us. So talking about the bungalow, you notice that we're still having the bungalow remain the solution. And the reason is most of the people that tend to not regard the solution is that they've not experienced the other side. So the idea of how we have found ourselves building the way we are building is because of years of experimentation. Weather, our wind, the way we live, the way we eat, the way we interact. I'll give you one example that I know Philip is going to touch on. There's this craze about open plan kitchens. And I've argued with many clients, sometimes gotten fired in some projects, where we said, with the way you live, you can't have
your lifestyle.
Your lifestyle can't allow this. Why? Because you have a maid. Are we going to have this discussion? Your maid is listening? The open plan kitchen is an idea, but it's an idea that was proliferated when we were watching Friends and whatever sitcom on TV. And those people, all they did was to warm up their food and use the microwave. It's just to become a guru in Mazondo, and they don't require such things don't work. So when we talk about the modern
ideally
architecture,
you should have a chef's kitchen.
we should.
And then
Yes,
kitchen,
and
yeah.
this has worked. So if you look at what we are now regarding as prolific, and we go back to how society has been, the houses we have in Kambuzuma, Zwaresekwa. At one time we were questioned when we were proposing a new development, and we proposed houses that almost looked similar to Zwaresekwa and Kambuzuma. And people said, no, these are colonial. You guys are not thinking ahead. You guys are oppressive in our opinion. But unfortunately, if you look at it, that is one of the most working solutions that we have in our society.
Okay.
So where Philip is going to is that people actually don't know what they want. And most people that have those houses, if you speak to them, they're trying to come out of them. And look around, they've been turned into schools, some into hotels, and brothels even.
And abandoned.
Yeah.
And abandoned.
Yeah. Maybe I could come in here. Something I learned when I was in Paris about the fashion houses. That the fashion houses have the art director, so the guy who does the thinking.
So
Is that Virgil Abloh?
I'm going to interrupt
No,
you.
any of the...
No,
please
I'm
don't.
curious about your shoes.
Okay, see, this is the problem that we're having, This guy has had one too many. But anyway, the idea of fashion houses, right, is that you have the fashion director, the guy who designs, the guy who comes up with all these fancy ideas. And the lecturer went into the whole idea of the setup is everywhere else, it's scientific marketing research. So you sort of go to the customer and you find out exactly what the customer needs.
Market fit. Yeah.
Right? And then you design. And they were like, but for the fashion houses, it's actually the opposite. You find this one guy who's an artist who thinks for everybody. So that's why Fashion Week is such a big week. It's such a big thing because the fashion director is the one that actually thinks. And ideally, they do not look at the market because what they're doing is they're setting the trend. They're saying that, okay, this is what we should be. And society, especially, in those particular society, which is the fashion society, have abrogated that right of thinking. And I think this is where Philip was going. That actually, we don't think, it's not like every day you think about the house you're going to build, right?
Yeah.
When you have money, that's when you then start thinking about these things. Well, there are people who spent
the past 20 years.
This 20 years or whatever, and they've gone into the archives. They've looked at every design. They've looked at the sun, the Zimbabwean sun. What you're terming bungalow is actually from California because we had similar sort of weather. There are people who thought about these things. And I tend to agree with Philip that what we need as society, especially Zimbabwean society, is politically we need people who think about our philosophy. Aesthetically, we need people who think about our philosophy. And then we need to propagate the idea. And I think that's where you have failed. Because you're in the sector.
That's a strong word.
I have not failed.
You failed
The
in
industry could have
propagating.
failed. The industry
Okay,
could have failed, but I have not failed.
The industry has failed.
Come in. Not failed.
No, you have failed. Okay, so the industry has failed to then articulate, because what the fashion designers, that's the reason why we have Fashion Week, right? The Fashion Week then says, okay, I know you guys are not thinking about these clothes, but we're going to give you a glimpse of what the future is.
But that, we have already done that.
Okay.
So what we have not failed. In actual fact, we've been at the lead. What has happened is that we've changed the tone of how it's being done. So I grew up in Glenview. Philip grew up in Braeside. So his opinion of shared,
Hillside. There's a
Big difference.
Whoa.
Yes.
There's like a whole street in between the two.
There's the big divide of Chiremba there.
That's fine. So I grew up in Glenview. So I grew up in Glenview and in Braeside, Hillside, whatever sides they were, and we're in the views. And what we can agree is that the solution becomes it's a meeting of minds. And this is what already we've been pushing, and that's what the new landscape has been. So the idea that construction and the communication has failed is not true. But what happens is that when a new idea comes in, there's always resistance. I'll give you 2 examples. You have seen the new BMW grille, and I think all of us will cringe. But I'll tell you.
I like it.
But I'll tell you.
Yeah.
For those that drive BMW, that understand the engineering, and will give it the next 5 years, you will love it. You understand? It's the same thing when the new S-Class came in, the one that's before the current. We thought, in actual fact, Philip is on record saying Mercedes has botched it. His argument is a C-Class is now a smaller version of an E-Class, and an E-Class is now a smaller version of an S-Class. So when women look at it, we're not particularly peculiar. We cannot differentiate cars. They will not know if you are really driving an S-Class or an E-Class or a C-Class. That's a good point. So that is his point. But the same point can also be said of the Range Rover. So when we change from a box to a certain thing, and look at what has happened to the new Range Rover. Everyone now drives it in the city because this is where we're going. So when designers come up with something, it is resisted. But the message is continually sent, and people then understand the design philosophy.
Let me push back a bit. Let's look at fashion. And I love Tom Ford. I love Ralph Lauren.
Yeah, but Tinashe,
Yeah.
only 1% of society actually subscribes to fashion. If you look at the Burna Boy show that happened yesterday,
This guy came
the day
on the show
before,
with a hoodie.
or whatever.
Mm.
Well, yeah, it doesn't matter.
You guys
I'm
would kill me if I was
not
wearing
fashionable. You know, I wish
No,
I
I
was.
wouldn't.
I wish I was. But only 1% of society subscribes to high fashion. The rest
No,
are
I just wanted
crusty.
to borrow an idea.
The word crusty.
Yes, I totally understand where you're coming from. I just wanted to borrow an idea. Because remember, my argument is your industry has failed to articulate what beauty is. Because I agree with you that Zimbabwean architecture is in a mess. But I'm saying that there was also a time. So I used Tom Ford when fashion was actually in a mess.
But where?
Especially in the 90s.
But
and Tom Ford went into Gucci and he sort of started articulating.
I want to push back on
where
what you're
in the
saying,
world?
Tinashe.
What fashion.
And you mentioned Warren Brook.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting...
There's some semblance of order there. Some semblance.
There's an interesting case study there where it's the community there has decided that they want to live in a particular way. In fact, I remember distinctly that when it was set up, you had to be a golfer to own a home there. And then the government pushed back and said, no, you're trying to be racist or exclude people, blah, blah, blah. And then it was opened up to non-golfers. But the idea was you want people who want to live a certain lifestyle, who are of a certain demographic, to live together. And in Harare, Brook is one of the few places where there's this community that shares an idea about how they want to live.
Standards, but I don't think that they
And the problem with most suburbs,
the idea of
and the problem with most suburbs in our country, the reason why there's this, like you say, the architecture is a mess, is because
The whole built environment.
if you want to buy a house in Melbourne, right?
It's called Maybelline.
Melbourne, you just do a deal with the person selling that home, and you buy your house, and you don't sign on to a vision or a culture of, oh, if you want to live here, you need to this is who we are as Melbourne, right? Melbourne, right? We believe in this kind of manicure for the
But that's maintenance. It's got nothing to do.
Okay, but James,
we don't have
we're going down a rabbit hole.
This is a rabbit hole.
But yes, but we're going into a rabbit hole in a rabbit hole.
Okay, so I think there's too much pressure for us to go on a break now, and also I've got pressure from my bladder, so so we must go on a break now. See you. We'll be back shortly. Just give us a few moments to work around it.
Sawira huya timborangana timboronga tichine mkana handirambe isheni novuma kana mati yangu nguva yakwana sawira huya timborangana timboronga tichine mkana daita isiva ramangwana taingovunza ndewani mukana dainda isiva ramangwana taingovunza nderani jana sawira huya timborangana timboronga tichine mkana sawira huya timborangana timboronga tichine mkana daita isiva ramangwana taingovunza ndewani mukana dainda isiva ramangwana taingovunza nderani jana sawira huya timborangana timboronga tichine mkana.
Okay, so we're back now for the last half of the show. A little bit difficult because I think we've had too much, but let's see how it goes.
Philip, are people making money in properties and stuff?
I think people are making money in all industries.
But
I also think people are losing money. I think people are. Well, look, I am a developer, yes. I do think the opportunity is massive. There's no way any developer can own the market. It's a very complex industry. Yes, I think there's opportunity there.
So who are the guys who are winning? Who are the guys who are losing? And
or maybe not but what are the guys who are winning?
What makes a winner or a loser?
And what are the guys who are losing doing or not doing in both instances?
I can help you.
Thank you. I'm stuck.
So, going back to economics, construction and housing is actually the only remaining asset class we have in the country. So when you're seeing the proliferation,
inflation-resistant
rather.
Bambaira is
So
also
what we are
asset
class, but it's not prolific enough. It's not sustaining. The same as Ruta. We've done that.
Yeah.
Kurima Masagama potatoes. We've also done that. But what has seemed to stand the test of time is being real estate property.
Yeah.
So people don't build. So when we speak of are people making money, largely that's not the reason why people are building. People are not building.
So tell us, why are people building?
People are building to hedge against inflation. This is a privilege. This is how to preserve wealth. So what you notice that the reason why there's a lot of construction happening, even some banks who are commercial banks, or not building societies, are embarking in construction because they have a lot of like pension funds. They have a lot of contributors and depositors funds in their accounts, and they cannot guarantee their value. And the only thing they can do is to spend it on bricks and concrete. And then we find ourselves in the middle of that mix. And then also the government has felt that there's need for us to put roads under an emergency fund, which they fund from the Blue Book. So all of a sudden, there's a certain boom and impression that there's need for construction in Zimbabwe. However, funded in a way. So the same way the government is behaving in how they are funding road construction is how we are also behaving as businesses, how we are funding construction as a safe haven.
Okay.
So we don't need to make money there.
No, but you must make money. Because my question is coming from...
But we don't make money.
But my question is from the point of view...
Oh, is that true?
Yes, people are not intending to make money. I'll give you an example. If you are an institution and you are a pension fund and somebody is contributing 3,000, 5,000 RTGS every month and you need to be guaranteeing to repay this person in 25 years, how would you keep it in your account? The best way is to find a way of converting it to US dollar, which you can't use using the foreign.
So you're saying it's an inflation age.
So you must find Philip.
You might find Philip, and then Philip will build a home for you using RTGS bricks.
My question is from the point of view of somebody who is starting in US dollars. Okay, look, we've dealt with monetary issues on this show quite a lot, and we've made friends and enemies for that. But there's a guy.
We have enemies. He's not used to having enemies, so it's okay.
We have enemies.
But
Get used to it.
there's a guy who earns US dollars, either locally or because he's
In the
diaspora.
Mm.
And everybody's telling him,
Going to property.
build apartments.
Not a good idea.
Oh, okay, now tell us.
Not a
Yeah,
good
that's
idea.
what we wanted to
Now
hear.
tell us.
Right. Why? So it depends. So for it to become a good idea, you need to have a certain volume, and you need to also have
So the number of apartments.
yes, and also
So the
understand
scale
the
of your
tenor.
investment.
So what's the break-even number of apartments?
Well, it depends on
It depends on the site
on the
and the
size of
location.
and the cost.
There's a lot of
on average.
Okay, no, okay, wait. You're
20.
breaking down to number of apartments.
20.
No.
Yes.
No,
20.
don't be boxing this, because I think he's asking you a very specific
It's very
question,
complex, yeah.
and he's trying to box you into an answer. I'll zoom out a bit and say,
it's actually explained.
what determines whether it's a good property investment?
Good. So before the architect comes in, well, unfortunately, the reason I'm quickly
before the
coming in,
developer comes in.
the developer and the architect in his background only focuses on the beauty and the appeal. And my job now is
He denied that. He said, no.
no.
He thinks
But,
about
but
other
my
things.
job
Just
now
aesthetics.
is to make. You see, why I'm background and in a black shirt is because I'm supposed to be like that. I'm supposed to make his ideas come to fruition. So where we come in is that we have a skewed opinion of what value is. In fact, most people believe that their piece of land in Waterfalls, Marlborough, wherever it is very valuable. And that is not true at all. In actual fact, land is probably if you're going to count elements,
The bundle.
land and curtains probably have the same price. Because ideally, at the bottom of it, do we agree that land is free in Zimbabwe?
Not in town.
No, in Zimbabwe.
Yeah, but
I said
somewhere.
in Zimbabwe.
Largely.
Land is free.
I agree.
And if you have a few signatures, you can get it at most at $1 a square meter from Marata City Council. Right? So what pushes the value of land, which is the investment we speak of, is what then the land requires for it to become usable, for it to be turned from communal land or agricultural land to livable space and desirable livable space. And this is the catch now. So we have livable space, but we have desirable livable space, and that's not expanding. So that livable space has remained exactly where it is. It is still the Mount Pleasant, the Mount Bras, and the Brodo Brooks that you speak of.
No.
So
Stone Ridge?
yeah, but it's exactly the same. Is storage growing?
It is, no?
No, it has remained where Stonebridge is. What Phillip has done is just congest Stonebridge.
This Philip or the Philip who's on Which Philip are we talking
So
about?
what this Phillip has done is to say, okay, we agree that the amenities and the convenience of Stonebridge is what people generally require. So let me sit back and engineer a solution to have
Subdivide.
everybody in Stonebridge.
Okay.
You understand?
No, it
so
makes
this
sense.
is the trick. So when you're investing in Zimbabwe, remember bricks cost exactly the same in Marondera, in Brodo Brook, and in a cooperative
Stonebridge.
in Stonebridge. So at what point do you strike a balance between exactly the same brick at $1.10 per 100, which is going to be in all three areas, the same cost of cement in all three areas, and just to make a profit? And that's the trick.
So
And
what's the
it is-
answer?
So the
He's
answer
actually
is
said it. 20.
No,
It makes a lot of sense to me.
no. Tinachi, you're
Do you
oversimplifying
dispute
it.
that's the number. So that's why
20 per what?
So it
20
depends.
apartments.
Per what? Because what
Pay
he says,
investor in
The
a way.
investment.
so regardless of the land
Investment.
size,
No, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter about the
Whether
land
it's in
size.
Diora
But
Sekwa or it's in
it
Bordo
doesn't.
Brook,
Remember,
for you to break even,
yes, it's
or
20.
for you to
apartments.
start
Yes.
making money,
There's a
regardless of the size,
There's a catch to it.
There's a critical
Remember,
mass.
where is the numbers? It still goes down to our earning ability. I'll give you an example. A while ago, we were tasked to be involved in a public sector project, and we're supposed to deliver on this. Unfortunately, there's a regulation that says for someone to qualify for mortgage, the mortgage repayment should be between 30 to 35% of their earnings.
yes,
Correct.
you can't deduct more than
You can't deduct more.
Yeah.
So no matter what you do, whatever matrix of your development plan
Comes back to
should
the
be
guy's
such
salary.
that at
these guys are actually
35%.
clever, more clever than the accountants. What these guys are saying is actually everything is derived from the yield. Right?
Amen.
So whatever the general economy, the economy is not performing then your yields are always
It's
going to be
gonna be
low.
low.
So whether you're building in Bordobrook or you're building in Zarasekwa,
It's
actually
the same.
it's the same, and your yields are
Are low.
extremely low.
In actual
And that's
fact,
our problem.
the most
If the
money
yields were
is
higher,
not meant in most money is not made. Sorry, I'm interjecting you.
okay, no,
No, he interjected you. You should do
So the most money is not made in the border brooks. Those
It's made in
they're
Jurassic
not. The most money, if you're going to look at developed nations, is made in public and more RDPs like in South Africa.
all right. But
That's where the most.
okay, so you're making money from the taxpayer.
But that's exactly where the most money is.
Because the taxpayer
Because the taxpayer is the
doesn't have skin in the game, right? Because if George is building a house, best believe he's going to be looking at every dollar that he's spending and asking, is there an outcome on, am I getting value?
And talk about any investor who would not want to
Okay,
invest in a government
so
employee.
we've talked about
So the best
we-
investor wants
we-
to invest in government employees.
we've talked about this private investment. We have this elephant in the room that you guys are experts on. This is the mess that urban infrastructure is. And look, the simple solution: our government must fix potholes, they must sort out the sewage. Look, even if government wasn't corrupt, even if it was collecting all the revenue, we all know there's not enough money to sort out Harare, to sort out Zimbabwe. What model works?
Can I take that? And it's a very political answer. The problem with Zimbabwe is that we find ourselves in a dispute or in a fight with the owners of capital. We must go, we must kneel down, we must repent, and we must say we are sorry.
Okay. No. Okay.
Well, let him finish. Let him finish.
I want to hear this.
Yeah, let him finish.
You see, there is no country in the world that can afford infrastructure development. UAE, United States, Crossrail UK, whatever, it is expensive. But you need the lenders to look the other way. The problem with Zimbabwe is politically we're in the wrong space. The guys who own the capital will not entertain our proposals. IFC, whatever.
No, let him finish and then
They are
you
not
get your time.
interested in looking at our proposals. You go to the most successful countries that are growing well, doing well, South Korea, Indonesia, whatever. The only thing they have in common is they bend the knee. If we don't bend the knee, we can't fix this thing.
Okay, can I come in now? I don't agree with the fundamental.
Give me cite examples of countries that have
Let me come in there. Let me come in.
Thank you.
Yes.
So where we
Let's hear
are,
his argument.
Thank you.
So there's this adage that corruption, that I don't even think our problem is corruption at all. Corruption is the way of distributing wealth.
It's a small problem.
It's a small problem, and everywhere there's corruption.
Thank you.
In actual fact, I'm actually quite happy if you corrupt and you have 5 wives, because one of those wives is my sister, and you build a house in your home, and my tete is your neighbor, so they benefit from your road. And I'm happy when you do 10 balls
Tell
for
me
your
more about
Mbuya.
your sister after the
And
show.
because when your Mbuya has a road, it means my tete who is next to my Mbuya can use the same road. So I don't agree with this thing. And then the next thing is the idea of democracy. It's a foreign concept that we don't agree with, and we failed to accept.
Okay,
and
let's
that's
not talk
fine.
about what
And
you
that's
don't
not a
agree with.
condition for development. In actual
Let's
fact,
talk about
our
what you think.
Our
His
problem-
issue is capital.
Our problem is
Is
that
how to attract capital.
we are not a safe haven for ill-gotten capital.
Yeah.
Zimbabwe should be a safe
Like
haven
UAE.
for ill-gotten capital. What I'm saying is, let corruption go on. Because it's a
I
pandemic
think-
that we're not going to control. But let our environment be a safe haven for ill-gotten capital. And
No,
once
I
we
think-
do
I think
that,
that's
it's the
actually-
cheapest capital we've got. In
No.
fact, Switzerland is more than 50 billion of unclaimed money in Swiss accounts that just have numbers. If I had that 50 billion of unclaimed money in some bank in Zimbabwe, I would use it. And
But
that
I
money
think-
comes with no interest. So what is it that we need to do? Because we know we are not willing to change policy.
So in the world of capital, do you know how much capital is out there? In the world of capital, it's 100 trillion,
Yes.
right? And you're talking about, within that sphere, you're talking about a tiny
0.5% or something.
half a percentage. And you're saying that Zimbabwe should target that
But
half a
this is
percentage.
good enough because remember.
No, it's not.
No,
In
no,
the
I
world of capital, you must be looking at
No, I don't agree with you.
No, but
We are
Trashe,
continuously.
Tinashe, I think
I agree with you.
no, Tinashe, I think you are. I want to say gaslighting. You're not gaslighting, but you're
No, I'm not gaslighting.
But you're
where are you getting that idea from?
yeah. Okay, I just said you're not.
I'm actually correcting you.
I just said you're
argument.
not. But I think you're shifting the argument because you are saying no. The number that we can get is bigger than what you're saying. But
No,
he's
that's
putting,
not my
but
argument.
he's
My
putting an
argument
on the
is
table.
if you were to shoot at a target and the one target was as broad as 100 trillion and the other target was as tiny as 50 billion, where would you want to shoot?
But that's not it, boss. So
Right.
you're looking at the wrong target. What we are saying is,
No, you want to invite capital.
remember, it's one of the biggest challenge we've had in Zimbabwe is been bad
Remember the Russians?
bad media.
Where do they keep their capital? The Russians.
London.
No, but
Right? Because London
point
is a
he's
safe
making,
haven for
which
capital.
which he doesn't think he's making, is very simple. Is that we are doing such a bad job attracting capital. that even getting capital doesn't want to come to Zim.
And I think this is where we must end the show.
But you haven't given me a chance to introduce myself. Like, for 20 minutes, you guys have not given me a chance to introduce myself.
I think we now know you.
Thank you. Okay. I take it.
It's been lovely having
Maybe
you
next
along.
time. Thank you. Thank you.
And as usual, we don't know what we're talking about. I mean, these guys know about drawing pictures.
I'm not an
He's an
expert.
engineer.
I must say, I'm not an expert.
He knows about building buildings. We know about, all three of us know how to add, multiply, subtract, and divide with varying amounts of.
I'm 60 years old.
But that's all we know. We don't know how to fix the country's problems. But we hope that these discussions inspire discussions between you and the people around you. And if you have access to people that make policies, we hope that these discussions inspire you to have important discussions with those people that make policies. Because all we all want is a better Zimbabwe. A better Zimbabwe for you, a better Zimbabwe for me, a better Zimbabwe for our children. So have a good weekend, or a good week, because you're probably watching this early in the week. Be safe. Take care. Be good. If you can't be good at it.